to the Couch Scouts podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cooper. With me are my co-hosts, Matt Rupert.
How you doing, my man?
And Matt Jackson.
What's going on, guys?
Yeah, it's good to be on the show and excited about who we're going to be talking about tonight. So on this episode of tonight's podcast, we will be continuing our Inside the Prospect series. If you're new, it's your first time tuning in. We have been just going really since the beginning of December, all the way up through the draft in April. We're going to be going prospect by prospect through a lot of the biggest names in this 2025 rookie class that you're going to want to know for your dynasty rookie drafts. And so we're calling that our Inside the Prospect series. Tonight, we're going to be discussing one of the most intriguing prospects in the draft, and that is Hiesman winning DB/wide receiver Travis Hunter out of Colorado. He is listed at 6'1" and 185 pounds. Junior, early declare. He was a 5-star prospect, actually the number one prospect in his draft class, number one player overall across all positions. He has only been playing wide receiver since 2022. So he came into college strictly as a DB, and only for the last 2 seasons has he been playing both sides of the ball, which is impressive in and of itself from an endurance standpoint that he is able to play pretty much every snap on both sides of the ball. But he's playing both at a high level too. It's not like he's just out there running laps. So excited to get in and talk about this guy. A lot of people are projecting him as the number one overall pick in the NFL draft, 101, which is pretty rare for either a DB or a wide receiver to be the 101. But I guess because he's both, he's in that conversation. So from a production standpoint, specifically his 2 years as a wide receiver, his very first year playing wide receiver on a D1 college football team, he goes for 57 catches, 721 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Not bad for somebody who's never played the position before. And this year he built on that with 96 receptions for 1,258 receiving yards and 15 receiving touchdowns in his second year playing the position, and won a Heisman Trophy. So, yeah, pretty good production, I would say. But we're not here to talk about production. We're here to talk about the film, because that's what we do. We're film grinders. So, again, if you're new, what we do is we get into the dynastynerds.com All-22 film room. If you want to go watch it for yourself, it's all in there. You can use promo code COOP for 15% off. But we get in the film room. We watch at least 5 games on all these prospects. That's a full game, every snap that they're on the field, whether they're targeted or not, even when they're run blocking or they run a route and they didn't get a target, every snap. So we're not just watching highlights, and we're just making notes, trait by trait. What are some strengths? What are some weaknesses? What are some patterns we're seeing? We assign out film grades. It's a pretty thorough process. We take notes, and we don't talk about each other's findings until we get on the show. So here live on the show, we find out, did we see the same thing or did we see it a little bit differently? And so that's what we're going to get into tonight. We're going to go trait by trait through here, and we're going to talk about Travis Hunter. And so with the wide receiver position, and so I guess I should say that this is a Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast. And while some leagues do play IDP, we're analyzing this from an offensive perspective. None of us are IDP experts. I play in one IDP league, but I don't pretend to be an expert at scouting defensive players. So we're going to be talking about Travis Hunter on tonight's show. Specifically, what did we see from him as a wide receiver that would translate to Dynasty Fantasy Football points? So now that all that pretext is out of the way, we'll start. And at the wide receiver position, we always start with release and route running. We feel like that's the most important trait that translates to fantasy points, because you got to get open to get catches, and most of our leagues are PPR. And so if you're getting open and you're earning targets and you're racking up catches, you're going to score points. So release and route running. And I'll start with you, Rupert. What did you notice from Travis Hunter in this area?
His release is absolutely filthy, and I would be terrified being a DB across from him. He has, for playing the position 2 years, I feel like he already has like an arsenal of kind of moves off the line. He's just so explosive. His hips are so fluid. He can fake to the outside and then break off a slant inside, and the DB is already like 8 yards away from him. He's just so explosive off that 1 foot, and he's going to be able to beat pressed to me at the next level just from his release alone. And I thought his route running was really good. Again, especially considering he's only been playing 2 years. I didn't know that it had only been 2 years at wide receiver, so that was kind of news to me, not being fully involved in the college until they're an actual NFL prospect. Again, to me, his explosiveness and his hip fluidity is probably the best I've ever seen. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. Um, the way he's able to like flip his hips at the stem of his route and sink down low, cut it outside, cut it inside, it was just remarkable. I ended up grading him at an 8.5 for his release and an 8 on the route running. And I feel like he's one of those guys that, if he's just hones in on wide receiver in the league, then I think he can easily become one of the best route runners because he's, from a physical standpoint for route running, I feel like he's the most gifted guy I've ever seen.
It's high praise. What about you, Jackson? What did you see here?
I noticed a lot of twitchiness when it came to his release and route running. His short area quickness, and we're going to get to this, later on in the show. His short area quickness was just stupid insane. The way he could get inside and outside leverage just on a whim whenever he wanted to was really impressive to me. It came to his route running, like he ran solid routes. I noticed some of the same things that Rupert did, just sinking his hips really well, exploding through his breaks. The stem of his routes, like he was really impressive. And a lot of that just came to his lateral and short area quickness. I did notice he didn't run a lot of complex routes. And again, for somebody that's only been a wide receiver or playing the wide receiver position for 2 years, it makes sense, right? Colorado didn't really call him to run a lot of these crazy routes. He was running a lot of, um, you know, up the field curls. He was running some like stop and goes. Just I noticed though. I mean, not to say that he can't do it all, right? Because he was running posts, C routes, all sorts of stuff. But he just wasn't called to do this often. So I think, like Rupert said, if he can really hone in on this just route running tree, this isn't somebody like Brian Thomas, right? We're like, I don't know if he can do it. I'm pretty sure Travis Hunter can do it. Colorado just didn't call him to do it as much as I think they should have. But yeah, I gave him, looking at my grades for him, I gave him an 8.5 for release, 8 for route running as well. Just really does this really, really well.
Yeah, I'm not too far off from you guys. I also thought that his release was really, really good. Very advanced for as new as he is to the position. Just a diverse package of releases and ways to get the DB off balance. It was a good mix of like great feet and good footwork, but also using his hands well and being able to kind of shed that way off the line of scrimmage. So pretty much anytime he was getting pressed, he was torching it. And that really stood out to me. So I gave him a pretty high grade for release. I was at an 8. Y'all were at an 8.5. So we're not too different there. I was a little lower on the route running. And that's not to say that I thought he was bad. I had him at a 7. Y'all had him at an 8. So we're not crazy far apart. I saw a lot of the same things you guys did. So the hip fluidity, the twitchiness, just the explosiveness out of his breaks where he could create separation that way was very, very impressive, and it jumped off the screen. I thought from a technical standpoint, and again, it's totally understandable because he's new to the position. Not as much like craftiness and defensive manipulation and technique to like get the DB turned around or get him to flip his hips the wrong way, like you might see out of like a Garrett Wilson or a Lad McConkey. If I was seeing that kind of stuff out of Travis Hunter with his athleticism, then we're talking about like an elite route runner. I did feel like he was winning his routes more with athleticism than with technique at this point. And like you noted, Jackson, the route tree not as diverse. Now, this was interesting because I watched in chronological order. So, of the like 7 games I think we had on the Dynasty Nerds film room, they kind of get posted up throughout the season as we're cutting these games up. And so the ones at the top are from early in the season, and the ones down at the bottom are from later in the season. And so I kind of worked my way through. And I actually felt like as I was watching, I was literally every single game seeing his route tree become a little bit more diverse, his routes become a little bit more crisp. Like he's literally learning the position on the fly, which is crazy. Because if you watch some of those early games, it's almost exclusively like goes and comebacks with the occasional like slant or crosser or screen thrown in there. But the crazy thing is, even with that really limited route tree, he was still winning because he was so fast. He would get the DBs on their heels. Notice the same things you guys said about sinking his hips really well. So when he would sink his hips and stop on a dime on those comeback routes, DBs would just fly by him, and he'd create multiple yards of separation. On the slant, same thing. If they pressed him, he could get 8 yards open on a slant just with his explosiveness, lightning quick first step. So definitely was creating separation. And as the season went on, it was like, okay, now he's running some digs and some posts and some corners, and he's maybe flipping those hips a little bit more, and he's learning how to stack and understand leverage and get guys on his back. And the more he's learning and adding to his craft, the more he's getting open. But I think they simplified it because he's playing every snap on both sides of the ball. So you've got to keep it simple. And I'm sure in practice throughout the week, he's practicing both sides of the ball. And so it's like you can't put too much on his plate in terms of moving him all over the formation. And now he's in the slot. Now he's in the X. Now he's in the Z. And he's in motion and all this kind of stuff that you might see. He literally lined up almost every single snap just wide right, outside X receiver on the right side of the formation, barely moved. And I think a lot of that had to do with him playing both sides of the ball as well as being new to the position. So the upside is ridiculous, particularly if when he gets to the NFL, if he chooses to go full-time wide receiver and really just dedicates himself to becoming a route technician and learning and diversifying his route tree and all that kind of stuff, that it's absurd how good he could be. But I gave him a 7. That's a long-winded way of saying, like, I think he can run really good routes and he is continuing to develop, but right now he's not a technician. And so that's why I didn't grade him quite as high as you guys did. So route running, we all liked and even loved some aspects of his route running. Let's get into the next area of our evaluation here, which was ball skills. And so when we say ball skills, what we mean is like contested catch, hands. How reliable are his hands? Is he catching it away from his frame or is he letting it into his body? Are there concentration drops? Can he go up and get 50-50 balls in traffic? Body control, ball tracking, like all those types of things that go into, once you get open, you got to catch the ball. And sometimes the quarterback puts it right on you, but it's not always that simple. So let's get into it. Ball skills. We'll start with you, Jackson. What did you notice in that area?
No, you kind of made the point. Sometimes your quarterback gets it on you, and sometimes he doesn't. I feel like for us, as hyped up as Shedeur Sanders is in this year's draft, like there were a lot of times where he wasn't getting the ball right on top of Travis Hunter. What I mean by bringing that up is like Travis Hunter's hands are really phenomenal. I mean, this dude has strong hands. He extends well to the ball. Like, I don't know if I counted any drops for him. I didn't watch all 7 games. I watched like 5 or 6. But
I watched all 7, 1 drop, and I looked it up. He's had 4 career drops. That's it.
His hands are insane. You talk about being able to extend well to the ball. Like his catch radius and body control. I mean, I gave him a 7 for catch radius, which is good, right? It's not bad at all. I gave him an 8.5 for body control, 8 for contested catch. I mean, some of the catches that I saw Travis Hunter making were just absurd. And if you want to see what we're talking about, literally just go and look up Travis Hunter highlights on Twitter. Because sometimes we warn against watching highlights because that's not the full picture. I mean, that's what that dude was doing pretty much every game film, was making these ridiculous away from body catches. His hands were super strong. I just, so many times I left watching the film going like, did he really just catch that? Like, it was just so crazy to watch. This was one of the stronger areas. And I know we just talked about how well he runs routes. This was another super strong area for Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I thought this was an even stronger area than his route running. I mean, he was, like you said, it was actually the first game that I watched was the only drop that I saw, and it was on a slant across the middle of the field, and it hit him right in the hands, and it was just a concentration drop, and I was like, oh, is this going to be an issue for this guy? And then I didn't see it a single time for all of the rest of the film that I watched, and literally every other pass that was thrown his way, if it hit his hands, it was like he had glue on those jokers. I mean, one handed, away from his frame, behind him, it did not matter. He's 6'1" is how he's listed. I'm curious to see how he'll measure out at the combine, but he looks tall and lanky, long arms. Um, I thought that he's slender, and we'll talk about that. But from a length standpoint, I thought he had pretty good length, and that gave him a pretty solid catch radius, particularly because I mean, he can catch it at full extension. Like, and in every direction. And the body control, I gave him a 9 on body control out of 10, and that's an incredible score in our grading system. There was one particular play against, I think it was North Dakota State, NDSU, where he was running across the middle, and Shador Sanders threw it like way behind him, like he had no business catching it, and he kind of went full extension backwards, matrix style, and I mean, when I slowed it down and watched the replay and hit pause at the moment that he caught it, he was like fully horizontal backwards. And I was just like, how, because he was going full speed the other way. And then to stop and get with all of his momentum going forward to launch his body backwards like that and catch that ball was just absurd. And then there was another one in the red zone that was, he was basically being pushed out of bounds, and somehow he like reached his hands backward and plucked that thing out of the air. Yeah, the ball skills I thought were unreal, particularly for being, when you look at a guy being 185 pounds, you're not going to think of them as being like contested catch type of guy that they're going to get bodied in those situations. And I mean, he had late hands. So when the ball was going up and it was a 50-50 ball, he never had a tell to give away that he was about to go up for a catch. And the way he tracked it and could make these ridiculous catches, even like there were times I saw him reach around the DB and catch it behind the DB's back, just stupid stuff. So that was probably my favorite area of his game to watch, and I was really impressed by the ball skills. He kind of reminded me of Devontae Smith in this way, because Devontae is another like slender guy that you wouldn't think of as being able to play the X in the NFL because he's so thin. But because he's so good against press coverage, which Travis Hunter is, and because he has such a great catch radius, which Travis Hunter has, and the body control and the hands, the whole package, like he very much reminded me of Devontae Smith in this way. And even though he's 185 pounds, I feel really confident that Travis Hunter can play the X receiver position in the NFL.
I agree. I saw it the exact same way. I was just blown away with his hands. So many times I feel like the DBs were just, so much defensive passive interference. There's no way he should be able to catch it with the way this guy's like draped on him, basically tackling him, and he still makes the catch. It was just unreal. Yeah, contested catch, amazing. I had him at a 9 for body control, 9 for hands. And then one of the things that was most impressive, I had him at a 9 for ball tracking. As you kind of alluded to earlier, Jackson, a lot of these passes are not, not on target. And, he may be streaking down the field, running a go route. And then, the pass is a good 7 yards inside or 7 yards outside where it should be. And he's able to track it over his shoulder, adjust his route, and make the catch. I just think that his ball tracking was really, really, really good.
For sure. So, yeah, I mean, we were all really impressed in this area. And gave some pretty high scores here. We're going to take a quick break to just shout out our website before we get into the rest of these traits for Travis Hunter. And if you don't know, CouchScouts.com is a thing. We're not just a podcast. We have a website, and we've got, I think, some really great resources and tools to help you guys scout really well, which is going to make you dominate your draft. And if you consistently dominate your rookie draft, you're going to continue to accrue value and ultimately dominate your dynasty league. So everything on our site is tailored towards that. We have an all 22 film room with some underclassmen offensive players and IDP defensive players where you can get in and scout these guys before they become kind of these highly talked about rookies, get ahead of the game on that. We have our rookie guide, which we're working really hard on to get ready for you guys in April, that we will have 60, 70 names, as many names as you could possibly think of drafting in your rookie draft. We'll have a breakdown, strengths, weaknesses, where we'd rank them, film grade. It's going to be the ultimate cheat sheet for your rookie draft. And just a lot of other tools on there too. So check it out, CouchScouts.com. And this is the best time of year because rookie stuff is our bread and butter. If you want to find the next Bucky Irving, Tank Dell, we kind of pride ourselves on that. We are going to help you avoid the landmines in the first round. I mean, the Quentin Johnstons of the world. We're going to help you avoid drafting those guys, and we're going to help you try to find those third round gems. And that's what we're here for. So definitely sign up, get your annual package, so we got you all the way through rookie season. And sign up today, CouchScouts.com. So let's continue talking Travis Hunter here. And the next thing we like to talk about is athleticism. And I think that it's hard not to talk about athleticism as we talk about all these other traits because we want it to be functional. I say this every week. We don't just want somebody who's going to go out and test well in underwear at the combine, but we want to see the athleticism jumping off the tape, playing into their ability to separate on their routes or go up and high point a ball at the catch point. And so when it comes to Travis Hunter, or talking athleticism, we're talking about size, physicality, speed, burst, quickness. And I'll start with you, Rupert. What did you notice from Travis Hunter in this area?
I kind of alluded to it earlier, just absolutely off the charts. Like one of the most gifted athletes I have ever seen. Ended up scoring him out of 9 for game speed, 9.5 for burst, and 9.5 for quickness. It was just absolutely bananas. Just how explosive he is in short areas. His long speed is phenomenal. Just, completely terrifying DBs on at every level of the defense. And then that translates really well into what he can do with the ball after he gets it in his hands.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, no. After the catch, he was insane. The way he can just juke a guy out in the open field, make a guy miss, and then take a short little slant or hitch route that he caught for like an extra 15, 20, 25 yards. You talk about functional athleticism, like he's super fast, right? But one thing I really noticed, like his ability to stop on a dime and like turn around and like just break off. And like you said, Cooper, a while ago, like leave a defender 5 yards in the dust because he stops so quickly. Like that's functional athleticism. That's the ability to really manipulate your speed to your advantage. And I thought he did that really well. One thing that I really enjoyed, I don't know about you guys, but I really enjoyed about his game film. I mean, he's listed at 185 pounds. He's not like this typical alpha receiver, but I thought for the most part, like he was really physical. Like I felt like he played over 185 pounds, especially in contested catch situations. We've already mentioned that. Like he's just an incredibly gifted athlete, and that's special to see, especially knowing that like he is still like a raw prospect, but he's so skilled that like we don't even know where the ceiling's at, and that's incredible to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I saw it similarly to you guys. I mean, for game speed, burst, quickness, I had 9s across the board, which again, for our grading system, like 6 is NFL average, so 9 is like really, really stinking good. Like 7 is good for an NFL player. 8 is great for an NFL player. 9 is incredible. 10 is like Hall of Famer level. So he's really, really athletic. Like you guys said, he shows up after the catch. So I had him at a 9 for yards after the catch. Wrote down in my notes that he is elusive and explosive after the catch and can take any mundane route and turn it into a house call. So yeah, speed to threaten deep, and a great job sinking his hips, stopping quickly, changing direction, really twitchy, like all the things that we have mentioned. So it shows up. It shows up in his ability to high point and make these jump balls and spectacular catches and contort his body. It shows up after the catch. It shows up in his route running. It's very functional athleticism. I had him at a 7 for physicality, which is not a terrible score by any means, particularly when you're 185 pounds. I just think that slender frame, it does limit him a little bit. I think when somebody puts hands on him, it can knock him off course. And that's not because he's like soft or, you know, whatever. He's just, I mean,
Just
he looks
physics.
so, yeah, it's physics. Like he looks like a stiff breeze could blow him over with just how thin he is out there. But he's, he wasn't being bullied. I'll say this. Like he wasn't bullying the other guy, but he wasn't being bullied. I thought he did a good job hand fighting. I didn't think he got knocked off his route too much. I liked his ability to still go up and get those 50-50 balls and not just get uh, run through on those kinds of attempts. So a 7 for physicality when you're 185 pounds, I would say is actually a compliment. Um, it's just I don't think it's really physically even possible for me to say he's a 9 or a 10 or whatever in that category. So, my lowest grades for him was a 7 for physicality and a 7 for route running. One of those I probably don't see a lot of change in because he's just thin. I mean, I guess he could put on some weight, add some muscle in the NFL, all that. The other is the route running, and he could get way better in that because he's only in his second year play and he has all the physical tools to do it. So, at the end of the day, I think really, really highly of Travis Hunter. When I compare him back to last year's grades, this actually really surprised me because, those top 3 guys last year were elite prospects and went top 10 at their position, or top 10 overall in the NFL draft at the wide receiver position. Talking about Harrison, Odunze, and Neighbors, obviously. I had him with a slightly higher grade than Neighbors and Odunze. So, I had those guys in like the 81.7 range, and I had Travis Hunter at an 82.93. So I've got him as a really elite wide receiver prospect on our overall scoring system. That would get him to in the territory of an elite fantasy producer at the wide receiver position. I think even if he didn't play DB at all, he would be worthy of a top 10 selection in the NFL draft just playing wide receiver, which is remarkable considering he's only been doing it for 2 years. So this guy is truly like a phenomenal wide receiver prospect, and the upside from a dynasty perspective is ridiculous. The
Like
only
Rupert made a comment in our group chat. He was like, or not our group chat. He was talking to me about this. He was like, he reminds me a lot of Malik Neighbors, right? A guy that is a twitchy athlete, really dangerous after the catch, strong hands. Like he does a lot of the same things that Malik Neighbors does really well. Like the fact that sometimes, like in the dynasty community right now, we're arguing like, is this guy even going to play wide receiver? Like everything that I saw, like there's no doubt in my mind that wide receiver should be what this guy plays.
Yeah, and so that's the thing for me is like I don't know how to evaluate DB. I just don't. I do this for dynasty fantasy football. I evaluate quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. I don't know squat about offensive or defensive line play or the defensive side of the ball. So I mean, from what I understand, Travis Hunter's a pretty dang good defensive back prospect too. Um, but all I can really speak to is I think he's deserving of a top 10 pick just as a wide receiver. And so it's hard for me to imagine that a team is not going to use him at wide receiver. The question is how much. Is he going to be primarily a wide receiver and sometimes on the field in defensive situations? Is he going to be primarily a defensive back and sometimes on the field in wide receiver situations? Is he going to be full-time on both sides of the ball, which would be unreal? Like, is he going to go full Deion Sanders and be a full-time player on both sides of the ball? I really don't know, and I think that is my only hesitation on him, because if I knew, like, I've got him graded a good bit higher right now than Luther Burden and Ted McMillan. He would be my wide receiver one from a talent standpoint, at least of the guys we've studied so far, and I don't really expect anybody to pass him in grades. I'd be surprised if anybody did. So
I've got him 6 points higher than Ted McMillan, who's like everybody's wide receiver one right now, which is just insane.
Same
yeah,
here.
I've got him.
I'll go ahead and plant my
Go ahead.
flag here. He's going to play wide receiver in the NFL, and I think he'll play DB as well. Maybe just more situationally, like in obvious passing downs. Like he's not going to play like first and second down against a running team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's going to be like 3rd and long, 3rd and 7, you know, in the game kind of situation. Like if they have the lead, the other team is just having to chuck the ball. I think he'll play DB in that kind of capacity. I don't think he's going to play full time. It's an offensive league. Everything's about scoring in the NFL. All the rules are tailored more towards the offense. I think he's going to play wide receiver and get the money. Exactly.
Yeah, wide receivers get paid more too. Yeah, I've got him 4 points higher than Ted McMillan, so not quite the gap that you said, but it's a good gap. So yeah, I think the question then is for a dynasty player is, what is your risk tolerance? Because I think at the time of your rookie draft, you're not going to have a clear answer of, is this guy playing full-time wide receiver or not? How many wide receiver snaps is he going to play? So without that information, spending a really high pick on him is a risk. So the question is, how high are you willing to take him? What is your risk tolerance? I would say from a pure talent perspective, and again, we haven't studied the whole class yet, I would have him at 102 right after Genty right now. So the question is, would you take him at 102, or is that just too risky for you? I'll go to you, Jackson. Would you take him at 102, and if not, what's the highest pick that you would be willing to spend on Travis Hunter in a rookie draft?
No, it's weird, right? Because primarily, I mean, we all play in a lot of super flex leagues, right? That's kind of the format that's more common now. And we haven't studied any of these quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. What I can say is I've studied these quarterbacks enough by watching other players play that, like, I'm not sure there's a quarterback that I'm that bullish on to take above Travis Hunter at 102. I feel pretty comfortable right where you're at, taking him right behind Genty. And
let's just say, okay, Ted McMillan gets top 10 draft capital at the wide receiver position, and let's say you have 2 quarterbacks go in the first round, and you have that information, and there's that little bit of uncertainty with Hunter of how much wide receiver he's going to play. Is that enough to drop him for you, or are you still,
maybe a little? Like, I might drop him to 103 or 104 just based on where the quarterbacks go. But I still don't think if he gets drafted in the first round, which we know he's going to, I feel like taking the risk on him above maybe like a Ted McMillan, just based on pure ability that he has. I wouldn't go any lower than 104, and I even feel like 103 is probably where I would have him at the lowest.
All right, Rupert, your turn.
Yeah, I agree. I'd take him 102 without hesitation. I just graded him way too high, and I just don't think he's scratched the surface yet because, like you talked about the nuance, like if he gets that nuance of route running, like it's just absolute game over for defenses against him. That the ceiling's just too high. I'm going to take him there. I haven't seen anything from the quarterbacks that make me want to take them over him.
And we haven't studied the quarterbacks.
True.
We haven't studied the quarterbacks, so we're going to reserve the right. Like, none of these rankings are final, but of the players we've looked at so far, yeah, I think I'm with you guys, man. Like, I mentioned I had him at an 82.93. Jackson has him at an 83.4, and Rupert's got him at an 84.8. So I actually was the lowest on him, and I had him higher than Malik Neighbors. So that should tell you everything you need to know about how we feel about Travis Hunter as a wide receiver prospect. Our composite score between the three of us is 83.71, which is just a really, really high score. I mean, that's an elite score. And so we think that his talent at the wide receiver position, unless the team comes out and explicitly says like, "Hey, we want to use him as a DB," whatever. Like, I just think from a talent standpoint and the upside, because we haven't seen his ceiling, he's still developing as a player. I think it's worth taking that risk. So I think,
I think the argument can be made that he's closer to 101 than he is 103. Like if you're looking at positional longevity, like wide receivers last longer than running backs do. So I mean,
yeah,
the argument can be made he's closer to 101 than he is 103.
I mean,
Yeah,
I hear I hear what you guys are saying. Running backs is a scarcer position, so I think that kind of provides a little bit of a boost to Genty. And again, just that little bit of uncertainty that Genty doesn't have. It's like with Tet, okay, we don't like his tape as much as we like Travis Hunter, but he's a dang good player and a close to bulletproof. It seems like wide receiver prospect who's probably going to get top 10 draft capital, or a quarterback in a super flex league that goes in the first round. It is a gamble. Like, let's not pretend it's not a gamble to take a guy in Travis Hunter who there is that uncertainty of how much wide receiver is he going to play over what you could be getting with some of these other pieces, but he's so good.
Scared money don't make money, Cooper.
Oh my gosh. I'm not saying that I wouldn't do. I mean, I want to see how the chips play out with all this. Even like Travis Hunter's landing spot is going to matter a ton, right? Like, I don't know which teams are kind of in play to potentially draft him. If he went 101, do we know who the 101 is at this point? It's the
Tennessee
Titans. So yeah, if he goes to the Titans, they have a need at wide receiver. But what if he, just hypothetically, I'm throwing this out. I know they don't pick anywhere near high enough to draft him, but what if it was a team like the Eagles that took him? It's like they don't have that need at wide receiver. He's probably going to play more DB, and that because you just like, why would they spend that pick on him if for a wide receiver? With who they have. So I think I want to see.
What if the Cowboys hire Dion, trade up in the draft, and draft Shador and Travis Hunter?
Yeah. Well, I did you see Nick Wright suggesting that the Patriots should trade Drake May so that they could get both Shador and Travis Hunter, and then bring Dion up?
I didn't see that.
But of course, that was
that some of these people get paid money to say these kinds
I
of
know.
things.
I agree with you. That was, of course, before the Patriots hired Mike Vrabel. So now they are no longer in play for a head coach. But anyway, yeah, Travis Hunter is the real deal. We think really highly of him as a wide receiver prospect. We will leave it up to you, the listener, to decide how much risk tolerance you have that high in the draft. But for us, we think he's worth a pretty high pick, and I think we're probably all three going to be above consensus on him, at least at this point from what we've seen. I don't usually see him go before like 105 in rookie drafts right now, and most people still have Tet ahead of him. So I think we're going to be pretty high on Travis Hunter. So anyway, appreciate you guys listening to the show. You guys that are hanging out with us live, always a good time. And for you guys who are listening later on the audio feed, you can find me on Twitter/X at CouchScoutsFF. You can find Mr. Rupert at Matthew Rupert FF, and Mr. Jackson at Devi Matt. You can find all three of us in our completely free Discord, which will be at the link in our bio on Twitter and in the show notes on whatever other platform you're listening on. And check out CouchScouts.com. Leave us a rating review. We appreciate all of it. It helps people find our channel. And thanks for watching.